Hi, this will be an instructional video on how to replace the bearings in a Time ATAC XS carbon bike pedal. So first, the things that you will need are the Time ATAC XS carbon bike pedal, snap ring plier. This particular one is the bent snap ring plier from Park Tool, and the product number is RP3 in case you want to use the exact same tools as I use in this video. A pedal wrench. This is just your standard 15 millimeter 9/16 combination pedal wrench, and this is a Park Tools PW3. You will also need a socket wrench, 10 millimeters. You will need something to use as a punch. I'm using a socket ring extender that I'm going to hit with a rock hammer. And if you have an actual punch or a normal hammer, that is just fine. I don't have those things, so I'm going to be using these. You will also need a small screwdriver, but you can also use anything else that's small and pokey. You will need waterproof grease, and you will need a new bearing. And the dimensions of the bearing should be 6 millimeters by 15 millimeters by 5 millimeters. This particular bearing is made by the brand Enduro, and the part number is 696LBB. Okay, for step 1, you will need the snap ring plier, and you will use the ends of the snap ring plier to put into the holes on the end of the axle cap and unscrew the axle cap. Now that the axle cap is removed, you can see the inside, you can see the axle and the axle lock nut. So for this step, to remove the lock nut, you will take the 15 millimeter side of your pedal wrench, hold the base of the pedal like this, and then taking your 10 millimeter socket wrench, unscrew the axle lock nut. Okay, the next step is to dislodge the axle from the body of the pedal. And for this, you will take whatever you're using as a punch and whatever you're using as a hammer. And if you look inside of the pedal body here, you can see the end of the axle and the bearing right there. And you want to place the business end of your punch on the end of the axle, like so. This. And then since I don't have a vise, I'm just going to have to grip it tightly with my hands, and then you will use the hammer to pound the axle through the body. Be careful, don't strike it too hard. You don't want to damage anything on the inside of the pedal. So it should just take a few hits with the hammer. Okay, so now that you've removed the axle from the body of the pedal, you'll note that there is a rubber seal that is free on the axle. Be sure to not lose that, and take note of which one is on the axle. And there's a second one that is on the body of the pedal right here, and if that one falls out, make sure you know which one goes on what part of the body and axle. So the next step is to take the screwdriver or whatever tool you're using to poke out the bearing with, and it's pretty easy. Don't poke too hard, you don't want to damage the bearing at all. Well, I guess this one I'm not going to, because my bearing is not broken, but I suppose you wouldn't really care much if your bearing was broken, if you broke it more. You just kind of gently press behind it and it should slide right out, just like that. So it just popped right out, so now you have a clear bearing space. And then this is where you would take your new bearing out of its packaging and put it inside. But My bearings are not broken, so I'm just going to put the old one right back in. At this point, you're going to want to apply grease to some of the parts here. So you'll want to put grease on the axle and a little bit on the end of the axle here, so when you screw the lock nut on, it won't seize up. My axles are already pretty well greased, so I don't really need to put on very much, but you know, it does not hurt to be generous. And then slide the axle back through the body. Drop the lock nut on top of the threaded portion of the axle, and then using the 10mm socket, tighten it back down again. Alright, that's tight. And this thing, you know, it doesn't hurt to give it a little bit of grease. This is the axle cap here. Spread the grease around with your finger and pop it back on, and then pull out your snap ring plier and tighten the axle cap back on. And at this point, I would grease the threads on your pedal. And it is ready to go back on your bike. Thank you.